If you ever tried building an outbound sales team, you know it's not as easy as just handing somebody a script and hoping for results. But what if there was a way to structure your team, your training, and your systems in a way that led to consistent revenue month after month? That's exactly what we did with a paid advertising marketing agency. And I'm going to walk you through how we went from disorganized chaos to a predictable 100K per month sales engine. Founders often make the mistake of hiring a closer and then just giving them a CRM, right? They get lists, they put them into a CRM, and then they just expect them to perform. But without clear messaging, a structure, and even accountability, even the best salespeople will struggle. This marketing agency had strong offers, but they had cold leads. They also had no process, no consistency, and no real growth system in place. We knew we needed a better way to organize sales operations. And by the end of this episode, you're going to learn the core structure that we use to actually build a 100K per month outbound team. Again, to completely cold traffic, why most outbound sales teams' efforts actually break down, and finally, how to train, manage, and support sales reps to drive results consistently. This is Sell for Scale, and I am Dylan Starr. So when I met the founder years ago of this paid advertising company, they had already tapped out warm traffic, referrals, and everything. And they were selling a pretty premium offer. We're talking 25K, 50K, even 100K plus offers. And they knew about my experience doing outbound with other teams that had paid advertising and warm leads, but they wanted to crack the code to actually cold traffic because they were focused on CEOs and founders, right? They wanted B2B companies. And it's really, really hard to use paid advertising to get in front of founders and CEOs, right? Typically, you have to get lists online, scrape lists online, scrape leads online, put them into a CRM. They knew how to do that part, but they just didn't know how to actually convert cold leads into actually booked appointments. So when they asked me like, "Hey, do you think that we could do cold traffic?" And I'm like, "Well, I've done warm traffic, but I actually never cracked the code for doing it for cold before." And so I was like, "But I'm up for it." But out of curiosity, like, how much is your offer? And when they told me, "Oh, we're premium. We're 25K up to 100K plus." I was like, "Oh, wow. Okay." Um, actually have never done that before, but I would imagine that regardless of the price, the process would have to be the same. So I knew when we started from scratch that we were going to have to basically build an outbound playbook. That's going to be key number one. Set up daily metrics, create a weekly coaching rhythm for the team, as well as hire reps that can actually follow structure and not just charm their way into deals. And what's crazy is within the first few months, we not only, with just myself and one setter, we not only closed 50K packages, but we did 250K in the first 90 days. So $250,000 in revenue actually generated in the first 90 days. And then once we went to ramp up, a few months later after that, about 120, 180 days later, we were hitting 100K consistent months, not only from doing cold calling, cold emailing, and outbound, but also by hiring people who had no experience doing outbound ever. In fact, every single setter that we had on the team that was cold calling was brand new and a complete beginner and has never done it before in their life. It was their first time and they were able to still follow the structure and the system. So if your concern is hiring reps, and you are in the right place because the system and the process is everything when it comes to doing outbound. According to a study done by the Bridge Group, sales teams that have a structured onboarding process are actually 33% more likely to hit their sales quota. According to Sales Hacker, weekly call reviews actually improve rep performance by up to 43%. And data done by a company named Gong actually shows that companies with weekly coaching and KPI tracking have higher rep retention so that reps aren't churning and more predictable revenue. It's not just about the reps that you hire when it comes to outbound or sales in general. It's about the system that you put them into. Let's break something down. Let's start with, why do you think most outbound sales teams actually fall apart? Well, the first reason is that most reps aren't trained. They're just hired and then expected to figure it out. There's no system in place to track performance beyond revenue. Finally, there's little feedback, so reps don't improve. So we actually flipped all this by, number one, measuring leading indicators, right? What are the calls made? How many calls are being made? How many messages via text messages and emails are being sent out? And tracking, of course, the booked calls. Next, we actually reviewed sales calls, real sales calls live every single day and gave specific feedback. And finally, we rewarded consistent effort off of those leading indicators, not just results. This is really important because cold traffic is a different beast, right? It's easy for reps to be deterred when they're cold calling, having people hang up on them. If we made the KPI only based on results and they don't see results, it's easy to fall into a rut. But when you make the KPI off about the actions you want them to take, right? Doing the dials and putting in the work, the leading indicators, then the team stays motivated. And more importantly, they will continue to do the effort that is required to make results inevitable. That is very, very key. So I want to give you an actual 4-part framework that you can use to build your outbound team the right way. Number 1, foundation. You want to dial in your messaging and your target audience. Hopefully you know this in advance. It's super, super important. Marketing 101. Number 2, hiring. You want to hire reps that are super coachable. They must be able to follow a structure, not just sell themselves to you on interviews. So when you're actually interviewing and you're hiring them, you want to test them and see, hey, can they follow this process? Can they watch this video? Can they implement what we said from the script after watching the video? Are they able to implement it in their first, second, or third go? How coachable are they? Number 3, training. You want to set up a consistent schedule of onboarding, of call reviews, and of course, role play sessions. Role playing people who are going to be actually closing the deals with the business owners, and also role playing the most key component, people being on the calls, cold calling, and actually qualifying and vetting deals. Those are going to be the biggest ones to actually focus on because without appointments, no one's going to close anything. And finally, number 4, accountability. You want to use metrics to measure activity and progress. These are things like your cold calls, your booked calls, and of course, your conversion rates. Even if you're starting from 0, this approach gives you a way to scale intentionally. So now that you have that 4-part framework, I want to kind of tell you what we did in terms of framing everything and how we were actually able to crack the code to taking a completely cold list and turn them into book appointments. And when it comes to cold outbound, I want you to think of something, okay? Cold calling or cold emailing is no different than paid advertising. Let me say that again. Cold calling and cold email is no different than paid advertising. The only difference is, think about this. If I spend money to get an ad in front of somebody completely cold who has never heard of myself, my business, or my offer, that's a cold person. It's their first time ever seeing that video, but the video is being put in front of them. Well, how is that any different than me sending somebody an email and getting them to watch a video? Or how is that any different than me picking up the phone, having a conversation, and then getting them to watch a video? In fact, I statistically have a much better chance of getting somebody to watch a video after having a conversation with me, right? It only makes sense because you get to know the person, you get to build rapport. So walking somebody through a process of cold to warm to a closed deal is no different whether it's paid ads or if it's cold. So don't get this fear of doing cold outbound or doing cold outreach and stuff and thinking like it's any different. It's really not. You're using the same process. And I read an amazing book. It's called The Sales Accelerator Formula by Mark Roberge. Highly recommend it. Great book. He talks about how he was able to scale HubSpot to $100 million. And the 3 things that he focused on was problem awareness, and then taking people from problem awareness to solution awareness, and then taking people from solution awareness into solution selection. So essentially, you have to make somebody aware of a problem. You have to make them aware that a solution exists, and also make sure that they're at a stage where they're ready to select a solution. So how can we do this with cold calling? How can we do this with outbound? Well, the first thing that we did is we knew that we had to make them aware of the problem that we wanted them to be aware of. So this is kind of key. When it comes to your offer and it comes to your business, there's a problem that your prospects think that they have, and then there's the problem that you want them to think that they have. For example, if someone came to me and they're like, hey, I have a problem with sales and my sales reps. And let's say I was a marketing company and they think that they have a sales issue. Well, the reality is if they're churning reps and they can't retain reps because they don't have qualified leads or they don't have enough leads on the calendar, let me ask you a question. Is the problem really that they have a sales issue from reps, or is the problem that they don't have good enough marketing to be able to even maintain reps? If you realize that the answer is actually the marketing, congratulations. That is the entire goal of a sales process, even a sales call is like, oh, hey, Mr. or Mrs. Business Owner, it sounds like you actually don't have a sales training problem. Really, the main core issue here is that you don't even have enough qualified leads coming in consistently to even retain good talent on your team, right? Bingo. And that's the big epiphany for most people is like, oh, he or she is right. This entire time I thought it was X, but the reality, my problem is Y. And if they believe that our problem is Y, then they're willing to pay money and get the solution of the product or service from you to be able to solve that problem, right? So, how do we do that from cold traffic? How can we actually get a list and then convert it? So, if you ever read a book called Pitch Anything by Oren Clough, again, another great recommendation. He talks about something super fascinating. He talks about the crocodile brain in sales. And this kind of goes back to like the cavemen era, right? Back when we were in fight or flight and survival. And everyone's brain works this way to where we want to avoid a fight or flight response when it comes to doing outbound. For example, if I were to call you out of the blue and pick up the phone and dial, and I just say, like most companies do, hey, is this Bob? What's the first thing that goes through your mind? You're probably thinking, who the heck is calling me, right? Automatically, just by me asking a simple question, hey, is this Bob? I've already put your brain in a fight or flight. So most people will be on guard or they'll want to hang up. But why is it that businesses like dentists and doctors, why is it that their assistants can pick up the phone, call somebody, confirm their appointment with zero fight or flight response whatsoever? Why is that? What's the difference? Well, the key difference is they're not sparking any fight or flight. They're giving them context, right? Literally, if I pick up the phone and I say, hey, Sally, this is Dylan with XYZ Dentistry. I'm just calling to confirm your appointment that you have scheduled with us tomorrow at 12 p.m. Are you able to make it? Notice how by me giving context immediately from the time that I picked up the phone and called, compared to me just saying, oh, hey, is this Bob? Or hey, is this Sally? There's no guard because I gave context, which if you haven't guessed, the answer here is literally just give context. That's all we did. That's how you avoid fight or flight. So what kind of contents can you give? What's a good hack that you can leverage right now? The hack is this: send cold email first, as well as text messages first, and then call last. So I'll say it again: cold emails, cold text messages, and then call. Now, why do we want to call last? Because we can actually leverage the email, and that's exactly what we did. And this works with literally anything, guys, I promise you. So if I send a bunch of emails, I don't even care if you've opened it. It's completely irrelevant. I can literally call and say, hey, Bob, this is Dylan with so-and-so's team. So-and-so wanted me to reach out because they sent you an email a couple days ago but about blah, 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 and we didn't hear anything back. Now, what this does is it actually puts the prospect into a state of confusion where they're like, oh, email, did I see that? What's going on? And I would rather a prospect be in a confused state than a fight or flight state. See the difference? If you're confused, you're not like, oh, what's going on? Is this a sales call? Like, what is this about? And you're ready to hang up. But if you're confused, you're actually thinking and trying to find information. So we put prospects in a confused state. And when they're like, wait, who is this? Or what is this about? Oh, no worries. Hey, can I just give you context what the email said? Guess what prospects usually say to that question? Yes, by all means. What did the email say? And then this is your chance to literally repeat the same thing in the email and use the same frame from the text message. It doesn't matter. Now, what do you say to text message? You say the exact same thing. Sent you an email, never heard back. When are you free? When are you available? And this gives you the opportunity to connect with them to where there's no fight or flight. Now we're having an open conversation. And now you get an opportunity to leverage your hook and leverage your frame. Now, I'm not going to go deep into framing. So it's very important that if you're listening to this podcast, that you go back and you listen to these in order. So we cover framing on episode 1 as well as episode 2. And the frame that you use matters. Now, in this case, for a marketing agency, we were lucky and we were able to use partner frame. Because they were getting a percentage of the deals closed with the companies that they marketed for in terms of like rev share, percentage of rev share, that was their retainer. So my light bulb moment was, well, so basically your partners. And the business owner was like, well, yeah. And I was like, cool. So guess what we said over email? So-and-so just wanted to know if you're open in return for marketing, if you'd be willing to give anywhere from 8 to 12% in return for our marketing efforts. And most people would be like, well, it depends. Like, what is it they're doing? Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, hey, real quick, just so I can make sure it's a win-win situation, can I ask you a few questions just to make sure that this would be a good fit? And prospect would be like, yes, absolutely. Guess what's happening now? We're automatically took somebody who was cold, never heard of us before, avoided fight or flight, having a normal conversation, and we're already asking qualifying questions. And then from asking the qualifying questions, do we pitch on the call? Absolutely not. Why? Because I already told you, you're literally using this to take somebody as if it was a paid cold ad and bring them through a process. The phone call is literally just to qualify, see if it's a good fit, and actually get them to go to the next step. Get them to book on a call, but watch a video, not pitch on the call. Not say anything salesy. Don't say anything of like, well, what if we can help you increase your revenue by an extra 30 to 50%? Or what if we can get you 2x ROAS in the next 60 days, right? Don't go for a sales pitch. Like, they have no idea who you are. Just build trust, build rapport, have a really good hook, a really good no-brainer offer. Again, in this case, no-brainer offer is partnering, but making sure that partnering makes sense. And you can use value frames as well. You don't even have to partner if you don't partner. There's tons of things that you can do and you can come up with to make your angle work so well that booking appointments is just easy. In fact, the person that set the biggest record for most booked appointments in 1 week, the record was 18. 18 booked appointments in 1 week, set by cold calls. And the person had never done cold call before in their life. They were brand new to it. It's just the framing and the script and the process worked so well that they were able to book appointments. Now, let me ask you a question. If you had one person or two people booking 10 to 12 appointments each onto your calendar, and all of those people were going to be nurtured and watch a video that's going to make them problem aware first, before they ever hopped on the call, do you think that you could close a deal? Yes or yes? Obviously, the answer is yes. You should be able to close a deal, especially if they are qualified and they are a good fit. And that's completely cold traffic. That's why we were able to go from 0 to eventually hitting 100K months, straight cold, brand new beginners, not top A-level sales talent, because the process worked so good. So what's next for you? I want you to take inventory of your current sales process. Ask yourself a few questions. Do new reps onto your team have an actual clear path to follow? Are you tracking anything else besides just closed revenue? And finally, are you giving regular feedback and training to your team? Fixing just one of those areas could dramatically improve performance. What is one thing that you feel is holding your outbound team back right now? If you're struggling with that or even needing help with coming up a frame or an angle that you can use for outreach, then go ahead and shoot me a DM on LinkedIn or Instagram at DylanStarOfficial and let's jam on it. And if this episode helped, make sure you are subscribing to the podcast and even sharing this with a friend or a colleague or another business owner you know that would like to actually crack cold traffic. Building a 100K per month outbound team, let's be honest, it's a huge win, but here's the truth. Most teams actually scale too soon, and they end up burning leads, losing reps, or hitting a ceiling fast. In the next episode, I'm going to walk you through how to audit your sales process before you scale. That way, you don't throw gasoline on a broken system. If you're planning to grow your team, or you already have, then this next episode will be your checkpoint before you hit the next level. I'll see you guys on the next one.